love to know what you felt. We're hearing everything from like a little rolling sensation to a little house rattle, everywhere from the western part of the state where the center of it was to as far north, at least somebody on my Facebook page, up in Chicago. So getting some people that felt it in Broad Ripple and then as far east as, say, Anderson. But we do want to get you caught up on what we know so far. We've got the newsroom reaching out to the regional office of the USGS, but this was a 3.8 magnitude earthquake in the western part of the state in Park County, centered near Montezuma. And to put this in kind of perspective, it's about 60 miles or so west of Indianapolis. And we've got kind of a map to show you, and then I'll give you a closer view. Unlike a weather map, I don't have a lot to show you with it other than the magnitude of this earthquake that, again, was 3.8 in the western part of the state, centered in Park County near Montezuma, about 61 miles west of Indianapolis. Now, you might be thinking, gosh, even if you're from here, we don't get earthquakes in Indiana. Well, we do. And I'd have to look back at the last time we had a somewhat stronger earthquake. It's been several years, but technically parts of Indiana are on and near the New Madrid Fault. This is the New Madrid Fault zone with the peak in the southeastern sections of Missouri into western Tennessee. But we are close enough to this fault that technically, we do get earthquakes in Indiana. They just don't happen very often. So if you are just joining us, I'm going to hop on our Facebook page too, so I can answer any questions that you might have. Again, and when it's funny, when we do school talks, I get a lot of questions about earthquakes and tsunamis, just because I think, you know, students are interested. We don't talk a lot about them here. And I always tell them, well, most of my knowledge is above the ground, not under the ground, but I know just enough. So I'll answer any questions if you have any, other than the fact that it's kind of an interesting phenomenon to happen here on a Thursday afternoon when, again, we are preparing for severe weather. And actually, while I've got you here, I'm going to let you know that we are under the risk for severe weather tomorrow, and it does include all of central Indiana, and we're up in terms of the severe threat to a 3 on our scale of 1 to 5. The biggest threats really center around severe winds, not necessarily rotating winds that we would see with a tornado, but perhaps those straight line winds if we get a complex of storms that kind of bows out or kind of curves out. That's what we're going to be watching the radar for tomorrow. But in terms of severe threats, damaging wind appears to be one of the bigger ones, but all modes of severe weather are in play tomorrow. The tornado probability not 0, so we'll be on the lookout for rotating storms as well. Also the threat for some hail. What I'm not showing here, the threat for flash flooding, and that's going to be a real issue as well. But while we're on this Facebook Live, or why we joined you, was the earthquake that happened in the western part of the state at 3:20 this afternoon. This was centered in Park County near the city of Montezuma, and it was a 3.8 magnitude. So I'm going to read a few of your comments. We just so appreciate you checking in. In a work meeting, felt it in Newcastle. So Newcastle is even east of Indianapolis by a bit. So a good part of the central part of the state feeling it. Michelle says they felt it in Hillsboro, Zulma in Zionsville, Whitestown area. Andrea felt it in Richmond. So that's in the eastern part of the state. Williamsport feeling it. Kelly and Fishers. Felt it in Southport. Thank you, Brenda, for checking in. Amy didn't feel it. I didn't feel it either. I was in the studio, and I don't know, maybe it's the concrete floor or the walls, or the fact that I don't have any windows in here, but I didn't feel it either. Or I was too busy preparing for the severe weather tomorrow. Patty in Kokomo, Melanie in Mulberry. What time did it happen? Clara. It happened at 3:20 this afternoon in the western part of the state. I got somebody I used to work with, intern, he was a weather intern for a while, kind of messaged me on Twitter, and that was the first thing that I heard about it. And his dad lives in Terre Haute, so a big thank you. We always appreciate anything that you see or feel in terms of central Indiana, especially the weather or things like this, to help us out. And again, we've got the newsroom on it. They're checking in with the regional office of the USGS. And we've also reached out to both Purdue and IU, some scientists there, just to get a little more information. Terry said, didn't feel it in Lafayette, but I did get a few reports of people near the Purdue campus feeling it. let's see, felt it in near apartment, shook a little bit. In Columbus, Diana, thanks for checking in, felt it. Emily in Crawfordsville felt it, not surprised. Crawfordsville in the western part of the state. Felt it in Greenfield. Donna, thanks for checking in. I knew somebody was going to ask me this. Chloe, that's a good question. The strongest earthquake we've had in Indiana, I'd have to go back and look. I want to say it's been several years, but I'm not going to give you any false information because I have not researched it. Let's see. Covington, this is Stephanie, home in Covington. Felt it, shook the house and windows in Anderson. Let's see if, and if you have any, I don't think a 3.8 is strong enough really to do any damage, but if you had anything fall over or whatever, we'd be interested in hearing about that. Let's see if anybody else. Whitestown, I mentioned Whitestown. A little small shake in Windfall. Irene, thanks for checking in. Dan did feel it in Lafayette. Somebody thought it was construction. I've heard a few interesting stories that basically just thinking it was something else. Somebody in a tall office building downtown thought somebody was just rolling a cart. And I have the one bigger one that we had in our recent history, and again, don't ask me what year it was because I forget. But I was in bed. It was the early part of the morning, and it kind of felt like a rolling. It was a really weird sensation. So I'm not sure if that's how this one felt to people, but we are getting lots of reports of folks feeling this. Pictures are straight on her wall. Thanks, Kathleen, for checking in. We appreciate that. Let's see, daughter-in-law in Marion felt it in Monticello. So really all across central Indiana, we're getting reports of folks feeling it. If you are just joining us and wondering what we're talking about, well, it was an earthquake at 3:20 this afternoon in the western part of the state, 3.8 magnitude in Park County. This is near Montezuma. Again, we've got the newsroom working on this as well, reaching out to the regional office of the USGS, IU, and Purdue just to get a little more information, just in case you're curious, and we will be covering it for you at 5 and 6, along with that threat for severe weather that we do have in the forecast for tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a day to stay weather aware. So lots to cover when we see you in about 26 minutes.